All right, I want to welcome on my next guest. We got Kaelen Jones, NFL writer for The Ringer. Kaelen, has everything going for you? NFL's getting there. Interesting week so far.
Yeah, man, I'm doing pretty well. No, the NFL's hanging in there, you know.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
league's
So,
hanging in there.
yeah. So I have a question. So the biggest storyline of the day in the NFL right now, I don't see it any other way. The Washington football team signed Robert Foster off the Packers practice squad. I'm not seeing enough headlines.
I couldn't even tell you what position Robert Frost
Wide
was
receiver,
playing,
come on,
so I don't know if
Alabama.
that makes me
Remember
a bad football
he was
writer.
on the Bills. He was on the Bills a couple years ago. Remember they were like, oh, he got cut and he
Oh
came back and
wow.
he said I needed to get cut. Maybe he needed to end up in DC. He's the only deep threat we have. Yeah,
Something.
yeah. So what for the real storyline? So Yannick and Doc, I can't even pronounce this guy's name. Yannick and Ngakwe. I'm gonna go with that.
Right.
Just he's on his way to Baltimore. What do you like the move?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked about this, with the Chiefs just last week with adding Le'Veon Bell, and really when you look through the past decade or two, the two teams that have done the best as far as like team building, you look at Baltimore and New England. Really, Baltimore is really right up there. They were able to win a championship literally with Joe Flacco quarterback. They remained in contention over the past, literally 15, 20 years
Yep.
because of the way that their front office has been able to manage everything. Eric DeCosta, is a beloved player personnel director. I'm not shocked that they were able to somehow finesse this deal after, last year getting Marcus Peters on a cheap
For
deal. This
nothing.
offseason, they've Calais Campbell, who's literally
They
rejoined with
they
John
traded
Goodall.
the guy, the kicker who got beat up. I don't know if you ever saw that story. The guy
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Vedvik. Vedvik
Yep,
was
Bedwick,
like
yep.
he
And
got
they
I
got
think he got
some,
like jumped in Baltimore
you know,
and was like on life support, and they got a fourth round pick for him.
yeah.
And he's just
And
bouncing
I don't
around the
even know if
league
he's
after that. I think
kicking.
he's fine now.
Yep.
Thank God he's fine now. But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they're wizards. I don't know how they're doing it.
Yeah.
We can't even get a
They're a
first round
great
pick for Trent
organization.
Williams. For Trent Williams.
The best remain the best for a reason, man. It's all the front
I know.
office, what they're
I know.
able to do.
So I don't think they needed an upgrade to their defensive line. Did you?
No, but that's the thing. You kind of, you double down on positions where you have depth. They added Derek Wolf this offseason to, play off that edge, alongside again, like opposite of Calais Campbell. So I mean, if you double up on defensive line, it just gives you so much more versatility with what you can do. Because Campbell's big enough to where he can shift inside, play a three tech down. And then if you have Ngakwe literally playing on the outside, like opposite of Derek Wolf or flipping however you want, it just gives you so much versatility, especially in a not a conference, but a division where you have the Pittsburgh offensive line is pretty good, it's decent, and then Cleveland when they play up the par, we didn't see it last week. When they play up the par, they're pretty good too. So just gives you depth going up against like teams that you would be playing specifically, and just moving forward too. Got to go up against Patrick Mahomes. You need guys who can go and chase him around.
Do you think this signals the end of Judon's time in Baltimore?
I think so. I don't. I'm trying to think of what his contract
I
situation
think
is.
he's on the
Forgive me for
tag.
not knowing the top of my head. Yeah, I think that. Yeah. So he's literally on. Towards the end of his deal. I think it depends on what happens. With Ngakwe stepping in and whether Judon shows up or not. I mean, because this so far this season he's not played at the same level that we're accustomed to. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Plus, he's a home check. I know he went to Maryland. I think he's from the area, so that maybe played into it. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Perhaps.
Yeah, and then so flipping over to the Raiders, so they just rescheduled the game. I think it was slated for Sunday Night Football. They moved it to 1 because the
Mhm.
entire Raiders offensive line is not really listening. So apparently they're not really wearing their masks. Apparently they're all on COVID protocol. And Jonathan Abram, the Salmon guy from Hard Knocks, who's I'm surprised he never got hurt when he ran into that thing on the what was it Monday night game? The Monday night game when
Yeah,
he
against the Saints. Yeah.
I'm like, how is this guy? I'm like, everybody's shocked and just jumps up. He's like, yeah, I'm good as go. I'm like, what the hell's going on with this guy? But apparently they're all in doubt. Apparently, I think they saw that they tested them. They kind of put them on the protocol on Monday or what is it, Monday. So I guess they said they have until Sunday to, if they all test negative on Sunday, they can play. But if not, I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they'll end up doing either because their offensive line, they have not had depth the offensive line. Their starting unit's one of the best in the league, but they just have not had depth there, and it's been apparent over the past few years. So
Yeah. Do you like that they moved the Seahawks Cardinals game to Sunday Night Football? I don't know why they always say like, oh, we can only flex the games after week 8. That's BS. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
They can do it anytime. I don't know why we were watching San Fran and the Rams on Sunday night. Put a better game on. Come on.
well, I mean, at least that's a divisional matchup. That's
Yeah.
the thing. Like that had some type of rivalry factor there, and rivalry games tend to be weird. And I know Michael Sean Dugard from the Athletic. He was tweeting everything that has happened on Sunday night. For Seattle in that stadium when they've played them before, and I mean, it's probably going to be interesting. There's going to be some weird ending to it, as we've seen in a few of the Seahawks games so far this year. The
Yeah.
Packers, or not the Packers game, forgive me, the Patriots and Vikings contest. So those are fun.
Yeah. No, it's going to be interesting because the Seahawks, I don't know if Jamal Adams is going to play, but their secondary hasn't been able to contain anybody. I think they're giving up the most passing yards of any team in the NFL right now, and I don't think it's close. But it's going to be interesting. And then what was the other thing I saw today? I'm drawing a blank. So there's a Robert Foster. That was the big news. Oh yeah. Okay. So we got Dallas and Washington on Sunday. Do you think? Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Does Dallas still have a realistic shot at winning the division? Because I don't feel they're all horrible, but I think Philly is the best horrible of all
of them. I mean, they definitely have a shot. I mean, it's wide open. I think, like you said, Philly's probably the best team out of the NFC East. But if Dalton can just play at a competent level, their offense shouldn't be horrendous. They have enough talent on the outside. They have enough playmakers. If Zeke Elliott, cuts down the fumbling problems, their running game will probably be not significantly better. But again, putting yourself in, awful positions early on in the game where you're setting up offenses with short porches, just not great, And I do think that Dallas does have a chance. So their defense, I don't know if it'll get much better throughout the course of the year. I think that it's going to continue to suck, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
But if their offense can mitigate some of that, because that's what Dak Prescott was able to do. Was mitigate some of that by producing so much.
Yeah, and I know as we're approaching the trade deadline, there's been some. We already saw Ngakoue moved earlier in the year. We saw Adams moved. Who were like the top 3 guys that you expect, big name guys that you expect to be on the move by the time the deadline's passed?
Ooh, that is a good question. I was reading earlier, forgive me, not watching, but I was reading about how Zach Ertz might have been on the trade block had it not been for his injury. That would have been really interesting to see. I'm trying to think of some big names that might end up moving. You'll see guys who are on, the end of their contracts, and then honestly, like AJ Green to me is like the most interesting guy to watch, just because he's been in Cincinnati his entire career. I'd like to see him play for a winner, just so he gets something out of his time in the NFL outside of money.
He's made the playoffs. That's it.
So. He has. It would have been nice if the Bears, were in a position to unload Allen Robinson, but they're not. He's kind of trapped there. And then Atlanta, too. It'll be interesting to see what Atlanta does because, again, you have Matt Ryan on a big contract. You have Julio Jones on a big contract. At this point, you're not winning this year. You're going to have a new regime coming in next offseason. So it'll be interesting to see if they maneuver anybody before, this trade deadline comes around, because they really should be giving up parts. They don't want to be that close to, the cap space. I know that their owner doesn't really care about paying over and everything else, but Tack McKinley, other guys who are on that roster would be really interesting to see, because they got a lot of talented guys. They just have not been winning games.
Do you see any guys like one of the guys that what about like a Stafford if they continue to lose? Do you think they could see him on the move and then them kind of looking in a new direction, or do you think
my gosh, I wish. I love watching Matt Stafford play football, so I wish. But I don't see him going anywhere. It'd be nice if the Cowboys could do something to swing that.
Tell you, Cowboys get Jameis, the most entertaining quarterback to watch in the National Football League, but he's got LASIK now, so he might be even more exciting.
Exactly.
Do you think? I know they also I saw because they said that after the bye, Tua is going to be starting in place of Ryan Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick apparently was not happy. Do you see him on the move, or do you think he stays?
I hope he gets moved because, he's 37 years old. He's on the final year of his deal. Everyone immediately when he did get benched, the logical choice for everybody was like, hey, Dallas should go after him. And it makes a lot of sense, right? I actually pitched, the Jameis Winston to the Dallas idea too, because you don't have to hitch your wagon necessarily to Winston. You can just use him for the year. And it maximizes, I feel, like the weapons that you have. Don't get me wrong, like Fitzpatrick is, he's capable of playing at a really high level. His lows are not Jameis Winston level, but I think that if you were going to choose between the two, I'd still rather have Jameis. But if the Cowboys were able to swing something to get Ryan Fitzpatrick on their books, got $8 million deal, the Cowboys have enough cap space for it. I'd love to see it because I think it deserves, to keep playing. I understand why they would go to two at this point at the same time.
The thing is, if Dallas gets Jameis will elevate everybody, including the opposing defense. So, and they have so many primetime games already, so he can get them all the way up there and then keep putting the other team back in the game. So we have entertaining fourth quarters, just so it's not just like them. Okay, they're going to run the ball on third down and they're going to keep going just to make it look pretty. Jameis, they already had, I don't know why they needed. I don't know. Stop putting the Giants on national television. This needs to end. They're on tonight. I don't know why. I don't know what the hell you're going to watch. I'm very curious to see how many people watch the World Series than the Thursday Night Football game tonight.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I get it though. It's luckily you are going up against the World Series. I mean, it's at this time of year where no one is really caring about either of these two squads except for the fan bases. But simultaneously, this has playoff implications. Like that's the other thing too. This is kind of monumental in the grand scheme of the playoff setup, even if these two teams are not good. So,
yeah, what's your kind of like under the game you're most looking forward to this week that people aren't talking about?
Oh, Pittsburgh and Tennessee. I mean, I guess people are kind of talking about it, but
neither of them's lost.
It should be, it should be talked about a little bit more.
Yeah.
Those are the best. I mean, it's the best match of the week, like you just mentioned. They're both undefeated teams, but it'll tell a lot, I think, more about. I mean, really, honestly, we'll learn equal amount about both teams because Pittsburgh hasn't really played anyone yet, and we've already known that they were a really talented team. This is the first competitively good team I think that they'll be going up against. And then same with Tennessee. Granted, they outlasted Houston last week, and Ryan Tannehill has looked the part. But I'd like to see him go up against this epic Blitzburg pass rush, and then at the same time see if having Derrick Henry is enough to kind of beat Tennessee, or excuse me, to beat Pittsburgh. So I'm really looking forward to that one to see how that matchup kind of works.
I got a hot take receiver that I think could be on the block, but it's probably not going to get traded.
Okay, who's that?
Juju.
Oh, wow. That would be interesting.
They got 3 second rounders already in the receiving corps that were drafted more recently. He's probably coming up on a big contract. They don't use him in the offense at all. They've shown that they can do with Claypool and Deontay Johnson and James Washington. Is that a guy like what do you think it would take for them to part with Juju?
It would take a lot, man, because I mean he's only he's 22 or 23 years old. I forget how young he is. He's been in the league for so long at this point.
He's coming up on his 5th year, isn't he?
He's got to be. He came into the league at 20 years old.
They're not going to tag him.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did because I'm trying to think who else on their offense will they tag. You got to pay that defense at some point. Like they're going to have to pay everybody.
They haven't paid Watt yet. They paid okay. Well, and also Bush. Maybe they look for some help with the inside linebacker because Bush is out for the year. But that's a name. Are you keying into any of this stuff with Michael Thomas and with the Saints? Does it look like anything? It looks like they might be heading for a divorce because I know they got into an altercation and then with the coaching staff, and he's been continually put on not practicing. Do you play anything? You see anything with that, or do you think that's going to be resolved?
I think it's overblown. This is I don't know Michael Thomas personally. I'm sure that he understands. He seems like a person who understands how talented he is. And look, the Saints have not played one without him at the level that they should be playing at least that everyone expected. And then 2, I would be frustrated too. If you're not if you're not being valued the way that you feel valued. I don't know what's going on in the inside, but I could potentially see why he's feeling the way that he is or expressing himself the way that he feels he needs to express himself. That being said, I would be shocked, if New Orleans didn't dish out the money for him. Or excuse me, they already paid him. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They've already paid him.
Yeah, paid him.
Sorry, I was thinking Taysom Hill. I'm like, wow, they paid Taysom
Hill.
They
paid him too.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. So they've paid everybody. They got their core, I guess, locked down as far as their skill players. But I'd be very shocked if they separated from him, this early into the contract because it just wouldn't make sense unless you got a massive haul for him.
What do you think a massive haul is like? 2 firsts?
At least, at least 2 firsts, maybe 3. And then a future second, a future third, or a future 4th, somewhere in there, because he's literally one of the top receivers at his position. He's only 26, 27 years old. It might be even saying that he's older than what he actually is.
He got drafted behind Doxson. Washington took Doxson over him. Where's he now? I think he's in the Peace Corps.
He was good. He was good in college. I understand.
In college, yeah.
I don't know if he was a first-round pick, but yeah, phenomenal college football player.
I remember the one play. I don't remember it was the Monday night game against the Chiefs, and he dropped that big touchdown pass. I think it was when the Alex Smith's last year of the Chiefs when they're 5-0. He dropped a big touchdown pass. From there, I'm like, he's done. So yeah, it's interesting. Outside of the Seahawks, where do you realistically see Antonio Brown signing?
I thought it was going to be Baltimore. That's the thing. Like, I was so shocked about the Dez Bryant stuff on Thursday morning. Like, it surprised me because I thought they would be one of the teams that was in on Antonio Brown. I'm not sure where else he could really fit, though. I mean, not that he couldn't fit. Any team could make room for a dynamic player of his level, of his caliber. But at the same time, I think that when I'm not one who puts too much stock into the whole, are they a toxic part of the locker room, unless like it's in the middle of something, like where you
ask Ryan Clark.
Yeah, that's the thing. But I mean, like, I'm going to assume that Seattle's prepared to take on whatever baggage that he's bringing with him. I don't think, and in the past we've seen it too. We saw them with Percy Harvin. They're willing to add him. Granted all of his baggage, and then there's been other instances on blanket.
Josh Gordon last year.
Josh Gordon, yes, thank you, and that's what I'm saying. Like, this is a team that's willing to kind of accept people as they are, which is kind of a lesson for life, but accept the human being for who they are. Granted, I think he'd be a great fit potentially, but the question is whether or not he messes up the chemistry that's already there. When you talk about Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Greg Olsen. Like, what that unit has been able to do, even David Moore is their number 3. Russell Wilson has been playing at an elite level. I don't know whether or not, adding in Antonio Brown affects how he's performing. I think it can only help, especially if you're using him only in spurts. I would wait, criticize.
I can't see him only. That's the thing. I can't see them. I feel like Antonio Brown's entrance to Seattle sparks the exit for Tyler Lockett because he's cheaper, he's older, and they've already seen what they can get from Metcalf.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's the thing. Like, it just wouldn't make too much sense, but
I don't know. I have a question. Which 1-win team out of the following do you think has the most realistic shot of making the postseason? Houston, Minnesota, or the Chargers?
Realistic. I would say Houston because they have the best quarterback out of those 3. And they play, in a relatively easier division. Houston Tennessee is undefeated right now, but they just proved that they can play at their level just last week. Had they just kicked an extra point, I was all for the 2-point conversion, but had they just
I'm good. I have AJ Brown in fantasy. I'm all good.
Yeah, you got to actually touch on that. But yeah, I mean, like, Houston, I predict coming into the year that Deshaun Watson would play at an MVP caliber level, and I feel like his play has gone pretty underrated because of their record. He's played pretty well.
Yeah.
He hasn't played horribly, maybe not MVP type season, but he's not too far off. But that being said, I think had Houston, had a little bit more weapons, maybe they had a DeAndre Hopkins, I feel like the season would be a little bit different for them because of the level that Watson's playing at.
Why have DeAndre Hopkins? But you can get David Johnson and give up picks. Do you see Haskins getting traded by the deadline?
I would like that. And I meant to make this comp yesterday on our Ringer show. His trajectory, I won't say it's the same exact path as a Tyrod Taylor, but it's not too far off because Taylor.
I see him as more of a Mallet than a Ryan Mallet than a Tyrod Taylor.
Okay, that's fair, but this is where I'm getting. Like, you could have someone who goes to an organization. This is what Kevin Clark pitched during our trade deal show, and he was saying, what if the Kansas City Chiefs traded for Dwayne Haskins, had him in their system, kind of developed them. They go off and win a Super Bowl. Tyrod Taylor was in Baltimore for 4 or 5 years, sitting behind.
He was a seventh rounder.
Yeah, but he ended up proving he was a starting caliber quarterback. Enough to granted, more of a bridge quarterback, but he was a starting caliber quarterback. I can see Dwayne Haskins developing into a similar level player, and that's why I was saying the trajectory could be a little bit similar. Because if you have a Tyrod Taylor who's sitting there for 4 or 5 years, figuring everything out, getting used to acclimate to the league, learning how to be a professional, I think that Dwayne Haskins was kind of rushed in everything. I think that he was not in a position to succeed, especially considering it's Washington's franchise, no offense. But, I feel like he could benefit from being in a better situation and then developing before, more being asked of him to rescue a franchise. I think he's more of a, mid-tier starter at best, maybe develop, like if he was to develop down the line. And for right now, he just doesn't have it. And he's not going to be able to rescue a team like Washington, especially when they're not going to give him opportunities, when he's healthy. So.
Yeah, I think it was crazy for them to knock him to third string. I don't think his play had been good at all. I also don't think the offensive line's that good. And outside of Terry McLaurin, they really don't have anybody he can go to. A lot of his plays were very predictable. He threw a lot of bad passes. I saw PFF said 1 in 5 of his passes was interceptable, which is not good. But I don't see the point of bringing Alex Smith on. It doesn't make any sense at all. You do not want. Everybody cringes when you see him snap the ball. We don't need that. I'd rather have Haskins get sacked or throw a pick than see Alex Smith potentially lose his leg again. That's not happening. I think, plus, you're killing his trade value. You're trying to move him. Nobody's seeing. You can't evaluate a guy who's sitting on the bench. But what do you think they could get for him? Because no one's calling.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I wouldn't give up anything more than a 6th-round pick, if that. Like, personally, I can see a team, throwing
Rosen got them a 2nd in Arizona.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Rosen's potential, and that's my thing. That's my personal value. I wasn't that high on Haskins coming in. I think that it was unfair that he went to that franchise and was expected to be, the all-encompassing savior. He just was not that guy. Even at Ohio State, he wasn't that guy. No.
My idea before they drafted him, when they were just going through the carousel, when then Alex Smith went down and then Colt McCoy went down and they brought in Sanchez, who I thought the era was beginning when he gave that handoff to AP and he took it to the house versus Philly, and then that was the only game he played in. Then you bring in the guy who doesn't know anybody on the team, Josh Johnson. My idea, I think they could do the same thing. I was talking to Dick Vermeil the other day, and their scouting department, of course, found Kurt Warner at a grocery store. I think we should. I'm looking at Harris Teeters across the country. See if we can find the next Kurt Warner. I paused on it for a year to give Haskins a chance. I was very happy when they drafted him. I don't know. I'm going to get some baggers, see him launching some meatballs down the aisle. We can evaluate, kind of do a little combine. Any grocery store that watches this, we're interested. But I don't know. I don't think he's the future in Washington. I don't think he's happy being the backup. I don't think he was happy to be relegated to third string. And with the Tyrod comp, Tyrod's been like overlooked. They put a hit out on him in the Chargers. I don't care what they're saying. That doesn't happen. I got an IV. I got an IV last year and they almost missed. They don't puncture lungs like that. Sorry. Herbert got the act of you guys to do that. They said, hey, you get me in the starting gig, I'll advertise your skin cream. There's so many billboards in LA that needs to happen. Come on, these guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can't throw to Keenan. You can't throw to Keenan Allen with bumps all over here. But
I feel it.
It's wild. It's wild. I got one last question for you. You have one bold prediction for the rest of this season?
Ooh, I don't know if I have anything bold. Maybe it's that. Wow, let's say Tennessee gets the first round bye in the AFC.
Even without Taylor Lewan?
Oh man, dang! I literally, that's the second time I've been told that today, and I keep forgetting that he's out for the year. But even then, man, I mean, I'll say, okay, I'll bump it down to number 2 seed. How's that? Because
the 2 seed,
they don't rely too much on Tannehill to make things happen. I was looking it up today. He's running play action at the 9th highest rate. He's handing the ball off to Derrick Henry. They trust him. They have a lot of weapons on the outside and even over the middle in Janu Smith. And they trust that Michael Pruitt kid, who I'd never heard of until this year.
Ferkser. The kid in my fantasy league, the first claim for the waivers was Ferkser. I'm like, you do you.
Yeah,
so
their defense is good too, man. That's the thing. It's rock solid. It's always gonna be rock solid. Mike Vrabel back then.
Do you think Tua's entrance hurts or helps Miami's chances of winning that division?
Oh, it helps. I think he's going to look good right off the bat. Maybe not week 1, but it won't take long before we are like, yeah, Tua Tagovailoa is legit. And I was talking, the Kaminsky brothers the other day about it. Like, and I don't think I'm being hyperbolic. I think Tua was one of the most accurate quarterbacks I've ever seen play college football. And, granted, don't get me wrong, a lot of those guys were getting wide open because he's thrown to a lot of first-round picks. But that being said, the dude was putting the ball in the money. This isn't a situation where, I'm trying to think of a decent comparison. Literally, like, let's say a Sam Darnold, where not every throw is pinpoint. Some guys have to reach a little bit, and
it's
they have
just
to make
pinpoint. It just doesn't matter. It's just different colored jerseys. I'm
Yeah,
telling you, guys, first throw is a pick six of his career. First, that's everybody's selling on Darnold. Everybody's saying, okay, they're gonna get Trevor Lawrence. I'm saying, why? He hasn't had anybody. His coach,
Yeah,
I could coach that team better. And I'm not even good at Madden. So I just do the auto play, and a lot of times it doesn't work. So sometimes you got audible. Sometimes, and most of the time it does not work. I got killed. I got picked off by the Griffin twin. That was one of my low moments.
Oh my god!
One-handed. Grab that. Yeah, he took it to the house too. Yeah, no. So it's all right. So last question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are the Jets taking Trevor Lawrence? Because I think it's a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked they would, because look, it's a new regime. It'll presumably you get a new regime. You'll have a new coach, have a new GM. They'll want their guy. And look, I don't know. I think Sam Darnold still has a chance of being decent. I mean, if Ryan Tannehill can get away from Adam Gase and then turn into an all-pro caliber quarterback, I definitely think Sam Darnold is possible, because I thought he was a talented prospect. That being said, I think that they'll want to move on, get their guy, and especially with Lawrence, because it's such a sure thing. He's, arguably been the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. I don't even know if it's arguable at this point.
Yeah, I think yeah.
But he is. So I would do the sure thing and draft him. So,
and where's Darnold? Where's Darnold go? Where does Darnold?
So that's the thing. I don't know. I think Cleveland could potentially be a really interesting play, because you bring a young guy, bring him in to compete with Baker. If Baker is even still around after the season, San Francisco would be interesting too. You put him in there, bring him in to compete with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that there's situations where I think Darnold will have to go into where there's been a fringe starter, and kind of make it clear, kind of fight for his position.
What about Tampa or Minnesota?
Ooh, Tampa would be interesting, especially because Brady, was getting up there in age. That would be a really good backup job to have. And then even with Minnesota, they would have to move on from Cousins' contract. They just gave him an extension this past offseason.
Great decision.
Great decision. It's turned out really well.
One playoff game in 8 years. No,
we'll see.
Yeah. Are you concerned about Green Bay? You think they're still legit?
Oh, I definitely think they're legit. I think that was just one-off game. Aaron Rodgers having off the line was getting banged up. The receivers were not getting open against literally one of the best secondaries in the league. Or not one of the best, one of the most talented, I'll say that. And their front was just getting blown apart, by what Todd Bowles was able to scheme up for Tampa Bay. So moving forward, I think Green Bay is going to be perfectly fine. It's just they face, the kryptonite. We'll call it that. I mean, that's the best front seven in the NFL, with a very ball hawking secondary. So I'm not sure.
Tampa? You said Tampa's the best front seven?
Or one of the best front sevens. Excuse me. Yeah. Forgive me. Pittsburgh did just lose Devin Bush. And don't get me wrong, Chicago's up there too. But
Jets.
Tampa Bay is
the Jets. Yeah.
The Jets. Tampa Bay is in that discussion though.
Can you name 2 defensive linemen on the Jets right now? Besides Quinnen Williams.
That's the only one I could think of. That was my one.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say Steve McClendon, and I was going to say Leonard Williams. I was like,
gone. Yeah. Well, that's all the questions I really have for you, man. Appreciate you taking time. For people who want to follow you, read some of your stuff, how can they find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Kaelen Jones, or you can follow my work on theringer.com.
Cool, man. And now Pearl Jam. Now, I've been wanting to say that for the past 25. Do you listen to Pearl Jam? Is that like is that like the free? It's like a ring. Remember when iTunes gave everybody the free U2 songs
the free album,
they couldn't get rid of? Is Ringer Pearl Jam? Is that a similar thing? Like, hey, it's in the manual. Here's your.
I'll have to check my Spotify.
Yeah. Double check it. You might have some 3 new songs unplayed. But appreciate you taking time. It's been a lot of fun.